Hi everyone. Crazy tough times at the moment. Self-isolation, disruption to everything we're doing. You know it's got bad in England when they've had to shut the pubs. It's even happened to my local, the Oaks, and the Globe, and the Sandpiper, and the Nelson, and the Ship, and the Rising Sun, and the Bear. We've heard about this fantastic new idea out of Japan. On-nomi means online drinking. Friends getting together, sharing a drink virtually when they couldn't share one together. So we've invited some of our friends, some of our PH ambassadors, some of the people we work with to have a chat and tell us how they're getting on in this crisis. Hello everyone, Andy Blow here from Precision Hydration, another On-nomi online drinks. This time we're going to the sunny north of England to have a chat with our good friend at Oxygen Addict Coaching and the podcast, Rob Wilby. How you doing, Rob?
I'm good, thanks, Andy. Cheers.
Yeah. Yorkshire tea, is it?
Something like that, yeah.
Excellent.
It's nice that it's actually a sunny day up here today, like you've said.
Yeah, I did. I actually checked. I fact-checked the weather before I made that comment on here. So just to make sure I wasn't lying. It's actually down here. I'm down in Dorset and it's absolutely beautiful as well. I think it's nearly 20 Celsius today. So wow. I've been out with the kids this morning because my wife's also trying to work at the moment as well from home. So we're having to do tag team the day. Like a lot of people, I think, are at the moment. So I got the morning shift out on the bikes this morning.
Nice.
It's just quite nice. Yeah. Settling in for some work. So how's life with you? I've heard a little birdie told me that you've really not been well the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. Today's probably day 2 of feeling properly human again. I think for about the last 14 days, had a bit of a thought I was better in the middle, and it seems like a lot of people who've been ill get that. I was rotten for 7 days, and then last Monday started to feel okay again, and I was back to work. And by the end of Monday, I was just exhausted again. So it was probably 14 or 15 days all in of, and I was lucky. I didn't get sick. I didn't have a high temperature, but I had like a hacking cough and felt utterly exhausted the whole time. I couldn't think, let alone physically do anything. Yeah, it's been. I've listened to an interesting podcast. Funnily enough, when I was out running this morning, there's a 30-minute podcast on. I think it's by the people who write the Atlantic publication in the US, and they interviewed a couple of people who'd had COVID-19 and sort of both. One of them especially said it was like this biphasic thing where they had for a week and then thought they were over it, and then it came back with a vengeance and really knocked them on their backside again. It's pretty scary stuff, actually, because these are young, like you, like fit and healthy people as well, not the vulnerable people. Well, it's a pattern we've seen. We've had 2 or 3 members of the team that I coach come down with it, and some of their family members as well. And it's almost in every instance we've seen people sort of say, I'm starting to feel better. I think I'll get back to training in a couple of days. And I always say, well, let's leave it a couple of days before you do anything, just be sure. And almost every one of them has come back down with it and been really sick. And in one instance was re-hospitalized even when it was better. So it really is worth people, and I'm saying this, I don't even know whether I've had it, I haven't got testing. So you just kind of sticking your finger in the air and going, well, I just know I've been really unwell for 2 weeks. Yeah. Definitely had it. And, this pattern repeated where her breathing went again. She has to be re-hospitalized. So I think it is really worth, stressing that to people that expect it to be a 14 or 15 day journey back to wellness. And even if you feel good after a week, it seems like I was so tempted that Monday to get back on the bike and get back and do a bit. And I thought, I did an easy little spin and thought, you're right.
Yeah, it's very true. I mean, we've all experienced it throughout our careers and lives, getting ill and returning to training or competition a little bit too early. And I actually put together a blog recently because we were getting some questions about it, about how much fitness you actually lose, during an extended layoff. And the reality is, and this is, I'm saying this to reassure myself as much as anyone else, but those first 3-4 days you take off, if anything, you get fitter.
because you recover so deeply that you don't normally do. And then, yes, absolutely, things start to sort of plateau and obviously drop away. But a couple of weeks, in the scheme of things, it's not a long journey back from there. And yeah, it feels like it, doesn't it? If you're habituated to exercising every day, if it's part of your ritual as well and part of your mental health as well as your physical health, I know that I would miss it after, or I do miss it after more than 2 or 3 days.
Well, do you know what? I completely agree. And one of the bits of advice I always give people when they're coming back from a standard cold or haven't been ill in any way is the day that you feel well and they say to me, like, I feel good again today, coach, can I train again? I always say, as a standard, take 2 more days off. Yeah. And that really lets them know that either, they spend 2 days going a bit crazy and really wanting to train, but at least you're absolutely sure they're physically 100% ready to go again.
Yeah, you're out the other side of it. Do you, sort of segueing into a question I wanted to ask you there, it's quite a good moment to do that. With a lot of people, events are obviously all cancelled or postponed at the moment. With the coaching side of things, I've talked to a lot of coaches and it seems lots of different opinions are out there on what people need through this time. But I sense that in some ways coaching's never been more valuable than right now, because people are looking for help.
Yeah, I think we've been surprised by that actually. And perhaps we shouldn't have been surprised because it stands to reason that people are going to need good advice, even more so at a time like this. But my team's expectation was as soon as all this was announced, well, it looks like there aren't going to be very many, if any, races. What are people going to want to do about the coaching? And a lot of our athletes are on a kind of like an annual membership. So we were expecting, people to want to defer the coaching for a year or suspend their monthly payments or whatever. So we got ahead of that and we offered it to everyone that we coached. And we said, we totally understand. And I think we had 3 members who wanted to defer their coaching to next year because they said, look, we only signed up because we want to do this race in the summer. Now that's not there. So they deferred, but everybody else wanted to carry on with the coaching and sort of said, look, left to my own devices, I'm probably a danger to myself.
Yeah, true.
What to do. And that's really what our job became, was saying, right, well, we've got all these training plans that we would give people for anything from a sprint to an Ironman. Yeah. And all of a sudden, overnight, and we talk about a black swan.
Yeah.
None of it was relevant anymore. And worse than that, I sat there and I thought, well, if I leave this plan in place for somebody, I'm actually at danger of, harming their health, because we all know how tired we feel after a big session. And that's fine in the course of everyday life when we're juggling training, recovering, and all of that. Yeah. But when there's a potentially deadly virus around, the last thing that I wanted to do was be prescribing training for people that might be depressing their immune system, and meaning that if they did catch or get exposed to it, they would be at an increased risk of going down with it. So we very quickly had to come up with a plan to write. Initially, we just wrote 1 week and we said, right, everybody we coach is getting this kind of moderate intensity, moderate volume training plan just to protect your immune systems while we work out what the hell's going on. And I went away and I did a lot of reading, as I'm sure a lot of coaches did. And the big thing I focused on was, what evidence is there that either exercise promotes or damages somebody's immune response, and at what level does that happen? And we came to a consensus that somewhere around an hour a day of exercise and somewhere around that kind of top of zone 2, low to moderate intensity seemed to be about the sweet spot where exercise promotes immunity, but beyond that, sort of anything harder or anything longer actually depresses people's immune systems more than if they did nothing at all. Yeah. So our first few weeks of training were really about saying, right, we want to train just to promote your immune system and nothing else. So that was our initial reaction to it, really, to try and help guide people through. And by and large, they were very sort of not just understanding, because I think we were expecting a few people to go, well, I want my Ironman training plan back. But we didn't see any of that. We just had people saying, wow, thank goodness we've got someone who's done some reading and worked out what's going on to help us out a little bit.
Yeah, like you say, I think that phrase you used, athletes being a danger to themselves. I know when I was, especially as a younger athlete, I was 100% the most dangerous person to myself when I was trying to train and trying to make up justifications of why I needed to, stay fit all year round and train really hard. And, I used to panic if I missed one session, let alone, got asked to dial it back for an entire week. So that deferment of responsibility to someone with a bit of a wiser head and a bit of a less emotionally invested viewpoint on it, I think is really, really important at the moment. I think that's really interesting to hear. So with sort of moving from that, with the taking away of people's goals and that kind of thing, I got asked an interesting question by the guys at 220 Triathlon the other day, who were doing a bit of an industry survey, and they were saying, what does a return to triathlon look like in 2020, 2021? What do you think is going to happen? And I thought, well, obviously I've sort of thought about this a bit, but when I really drilled into it, I thought, you know what? One of the things that I can potentially see happening later in the year is when restrictions get lifted and stuff, it's still going to be very, very difficult to put on really big events. And it's going to be really difficult or maybe impossible to justify large amounts of international travel and all the rest of it. So what are people going to do? And I thought, well, maybe people are going to race locally. There's going to be some smaller events. We have these little events in Bournemouth, Boston, called the Salty Sea Dog, which are like a little Saturday morning triathlon, which I can see those kind of things getting really, really popular if they're allowed to go on, because there'll be small numbers, they'll be just down the road, and there'll be all these people itching to do something. What are you thinking is going to happen?
Well, we've been through exactly the same thought process, and it's really hard at the moment to see a way through with the sort of what was the standard international travel, big marquee name events going ahead. And we came to a very similar idea that these, like the classic club run event that used to be done by passionate volunteers that were set up in an hour on the morning of the event.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see a return to that. Time trialing started, didn't it? Because road racing got banned during the First World War or maybe the Second World War?
I think it was around, it was to do with the roads getting busier and all that sort of stuff, wasn't it? Causing problems.
Racing got banned, and they said, right, well, we'll do time trials instead. And all the codes on the courses came because they didn't want anyone to know where they were. I mean, it's hard enough to find out where the damn thing is.
Very true.
I think there's going to be lots of things that get really big. So I think there'll be a lot of support for club run events, because while it might be very difficult for a big brand to get all the volunteers in place and to get, sort of like Rotary volunteers or whoever to man hundreds of aid stations, if you're just a little local club event with access to a pond to swim in, that could happen at relatively short notice. And I think it was never about making money for the club run events, and there's a great event near us that runs, and it's about 20 quid to enter, and it's bizarre distances because that's what the loop of the road is, and that's what and I think there'll be a getting back to that kind of thing. Back in the days before there were commercial race organizations, these things were just put on by people, and I'm sure we'll see a lot more of that.
I think so, and I think that in some ways will be healthy for the local community tri clubs and all that kind of thing. It helps people get back to it, definitely.
Yeah.
And in terms of like the bigger scale stuff. Now, I know that you had a conversation recently with Sam Renouf, I think, who's the CEO of the PTO now, and they had huge plans for this year. I haven't got around to listening to it yet. I've got it queued up as one of the things. The problem with this downtime is I'm listening to too many new podcasts and things about world events and stuff, so I'm not getting my staple ones in. But I know Sam a little bit because he and I came through triathlon at a similar time, and Sam's he's always been a really impressive guy. He was actually, funnily enough, our paths crossed a few years ago when he was working for the Active Network, because I was helping to organise events at that time, and he was our sort of regional account manager for Active, and always a super impressive guy. Went on to do big things with Active, and kind of I've very, very loosely kept in touch with him. And when I heard that, funnily enough, when I heard that he was one of the people involved in the PTO, that was a moment for me where I was like, actually, this thing's got legs. This sounds like it could go somewhere. What were his views on what's going to happen next?
Well, his big thing was, and the thing that impressed me the most was how quickly they got in and just said, our job is to support the pros. We've had this investment money. And it was, it's a staggering amount of money, isn't it? $2.5 million.
Yeah.
To just give it away and say, that really showed to me, I think, their organization is exactly what they want it to be, and that they're supporting professionals and bringing them together. And you've got to imagine if you're a 89th ranked pro in the world and you get a check for $8,000 right now, that's massive, isn't it? That's rent and food paid for 6 months.
Yeah.
So his main point was, we just made the decision straight away. We're going to pay all the pros and take that immediate financial worry off the shoulders. We're going to immediately put the race back to next summer and just say, there's no point trying to delay it this year. Let's move it back. And the third thing that he came around to was, we want to create some content for people to have a look at. And so, although the pros can't race, let's provide a place where the pros can interact with, little video interviews and stuff. And I think they've done that really well. I think the fact that they've got level pros, and it's a nightmare for people like me who are trying to get the pros on their podcast.
And that's their PTO hub, is it? Is that what it's called?
Right, yeah. But he certainly gave the impression they've got a long-term view of it. They're not in it for 1 or 2 years. They're in it to try and grow triathlon for the next 2 decades. This is a fundamental building block. And I think if you're a pro right now getting started and you're worried about money, the fact that these guys have got your back straight, I mean, how much goodwill does that buy? The fact that
phenomenal
for 6 months.
Well, I had a conversation with someone, and this is not unique insight, but it struck me as being a valuable piece of advice. And someone that I trust, a sort of mentor for me, said that Andy, when you think about all the things that you have to do with your business and family and everything during this crisis, like, remember that people will remember how people responded to these events, because it is very easy to turn selfish. You could see a very strong justification in one sense from a legal point of view, maybe for the PTO to turn around and say, do you know what, we're unfortunately, force majeure, that phrase that we keep hearing, and we're gonna put the money into 2021 and we'll see you on the other side, type of thing. And the fact they've not done that, like you said, is very, very revealing as to their character, the long-term nature of what they're planning and stuff. So definitely to be applauded, I think. Yeah,
I think so.
Very good. Another thing we've been trying to do as in our business, and podcasts are a big part of that, is share content with people, things like these videos, for instance, just for a bit of entertainment, and also a bit of so that people can catch it with celebrities like yourself, see that we're all having to work from home and stuff, but we've been trying to share content of all sorts that's also kind of educational stuff to fill your time, that isn't just, we've all probably watched Tiger King on Netflix, and that has its place, I think, but also trying to share stuff which increases your knowledge base and whatever. We've been doing it on a Wednesday at the moment with an email that we're sending out with kind of things to upskill you. So we've promoted some quiz type things about and some blogs to improve your knowledge. We've done an offer to do our Training Peaks course, which is called The Science of Endurance Hydration. And we put out an offer to reduce that from, I think it's normally $99. It's down to $10 until the end of May, so that people can learn a bit more. What resources have you been reading or listening to, or anything? Have you got anything you could recommend to people at the moment, do you think?
Yeah, you know what? I queued something up here. Just let me actually quote this directly. The paper that we went to, I think would make for really interesting reading for anyone who's looking to keep on training and protect themselves. The paper was called "The Compelling Link Between Physical Activity and the Body's Defense System." It was published in the Journal of Sport and Health Medicine by Nyman and Wentz. And that's free to Google. And from that, I got a lot of interesting information that let me think, right, are we doing the right thing here? Because almost everywhere else I was looking, there were people organising races, and there were friends of mine who, coach as well. And I was seeing lots of people say, well, we're all going to get together and do a flat out race on Zwift, or we've got the IMAR series. And I was looking at that and thinking, you worry on the one hand that you're not giving people what they want. And then on the other hand, you worry that if ever there was an appropriate time to do something different, and to kind of change the way you think about things, perhaps now is it. And I think we kind of doubled down on that, said, right, we're going to have the coach of our convictions, and we're now 6 weeks into our kind of moderate volume, moderate intensity training plan. Yeah. And I think we'll come out of the end of it probably another 3 weeks. Who knows? Yeah. It's hard to tell, isn't it? But if we do see, as is expected, the peak comes and the death rates, maybe then it becomes a bit more safer. I mean, we're already feeling a bit more confident that our demographic don't seem to be affected anywhere near as much as we feared they would be. Yeah. So maybe doing harder events, doing harder races is actually okay. But I don't think I'll ever regret having been on the cautious side of it, because I think it would be throw caution to the wind and go, we're all going to smash ourselves. I think, we took a step back. And an interesting observation from one of our guys was that he said, I got this training plan, it had 7 hours a week in, and I thought to myself, I can't be bothered with this. I want to be doing 14 hours like I used to. I'll Ironman later in the year. And 3 weeks in, he said he looked back over his training peaks and he realised that with a plan with 7 hours in, he was doing every single one of the hours. He was doing all the sessions and completing them. When he looked back over a bigger plan that he'd had, he was still doing 7 hours a week. Sessions. So he said the perception I was doing less was just that. It was just a perception. It's just, I don't think there's a bad time to have a block of steady endurance training. And maybe it's an enforced pause, but we have to reconsider how we live and we reconsider how we train for a bit. And if we go back to how it always was afterwards, great. But I don't think anybody damages themselves by training at low to moderate intensity for a traditional block of base building from the 80s.
No, I mean, I spoke to Sarah Crowley at length the other day because, as you know, we work closely with Sarah, and she's actually in Noosa at the moment, holed up there, and probably one of the more fortunate people, as she readily admits, about how well she can train, because she's got the ocean, which she can get a swim in. She's got access to clear roads, clear trails. So it's not quite training as normal, but she can carry on. But even she's dialing it back, because she's keeping fit. But she said, when else do we get a chance to take a prolonged, semi break like this, mentally refresh, physically rebuild? Because since she turned pro 3-4 years ago, she's had an incredible career of racing non-stop, and she was just saying, look, she actually thinks that, okay, she might be losing a year here, but this will extend her career by at least a year on the back end because of the rejuvenation. And I've taken that view, not career-wise, but with my own running, for instance. I've realised that I've been training up for all these O2low swim runs the last few years, and whilst I've not trained probably more than 5, 6, maybe 7 hours a week, it's not been high volume. I have been pushing the intensity a fair bit, and I've had a few calf niggles. This year was frustrating as hell because I pulled my calf in the first week of January and didn't run properly until nearly the end of Feb. And that was because I was pushing it hard, basically, when I look back and I'm honest with myself. And so what I've done now is I've taken this view of, okay, I'm probably doing as many, if not a few more, a little bit more hours than I was, but very, very light, largely low and easy. Like I did a nice long run at the weekend. I ran a sort of sprightly kind of 2K towards the back end of it because I was lovely and warmed up. And it just felt like, I wanted to stretch my legs. But if I'd have not felt like that, I wouldn't have bothered. I've been cruising it, and it's very good for your head and your body, I think, to do that.
Well, one thing I did recently was, I don't know if you can see this, but I found this old, the classic.
Yeah, the Timex. Yeah.
I found this in a drawer and I thought, I'm not going to wear the Garmin for a while.
Yeah.
It's a great thing to do, especially at the moment, not looking at the pace every few 100 meters.
Definitely.
Just go out for a jog. And I couldn't tell you whether I ran at 5-minute Ks or 8-minute Ks this morning, but it didn't matter. just genuinely nice to be out again. So it's it's nice to take that pause, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, good tip at the moment to not worry so much about the data. One last question for you, Rob, before I let you go. When we do return to a semblance of normality, what's the first thing you're most looking forward to? Do you think what you first going to do when you can go out and almost do what you like?
I'm going to get in the camper van and I'm going to drive to the ocean. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And if there's waves for surf, I'm going to get, no matter how sloppy it is, I'm getting in for surf.
Very nice. Well, if the weather carries on like this, hopefully the water will be warm enough for you. Yeah.
The forecast for Cornwall tomorrow and Wednesday is just all time at the moment. And I was
really,
it's 6 foot and offshore, and it's like, can I justify a 6 hour drive? No.
Yeah. Where do you normally go? Where's your spot in Cornwall for surf?
I've got friends who live down near Poleseth, so when I go to Cornwall, I go down there. And then the nearby place for me, I go over to Anglesey, and there's some little spots around Anglesey that are nice to jump in at. So it's only a 90-minute drive or so.
Yeah, and last question: Are you like an old dude on a big longboard, or are you still shredding it on a little 6 foot?
I always was a longboarder. That's the thing. Yeah. I was in the resurgence of longboarding when it was a cool thing to do. So even when I was in my, I was a longboarder. I don't fall in quite as often as I used to. That's the only difference.
Yeah, very good. I'm fully with you on that. I'm not. My brother's a fantastic surfer. I'm like very, very mediocre. But when I do get the chance, I do love to jump on a longboard if I can. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff. Well, glad to hear you're on the mend.
Thanks.
Keep churning out the great podcasts. Obviously, we love them. We'll be directing all our people to go and listen to them as well. And take it easy. Don't work too hard.
Cheers, buddy. See you soon.
Cheers, Rob. Bye-bye.